All right, to solve this first practice problem, the first thing we want to do is simplify what's inside of the radical. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We've got the third root of, and now we have a few constants as well as some variables in here that we need to simplify. Start with the numbers. We have a 2 in the numerator and a 16 in the denominator. We can cancel a 2 out of both of those. That gives us 8. Oops. And we have an x to the fourth in the numerator and an x in the denominator. We can cancel an x out of both of those. Leaves us with an x to the third in the numerator. And then we have a y squared and a z to the third in the denominator and no y's or z's in the numerator. So we'll just go ahead and bring those with us. All right. Now, since this is a third root, any factor that appears 3 times can be brought out of the radical. So since I have an x to the third in the numerator, that'll leave me with an x in the numerator and no radical. Since I have an 8 in the denominator, that's 2 times 2 times 2, so I can bring a 2 out of the radical. I only have a y squared, so I only have 2 y's as factors, so I can't bring a y out of the radical. And then z to the third, I have 3 z's, so I can bring a z out of the radical. And I still have a y squared inside that radical in the denominator. Now, I don't want a radical in my denominator, so I need another y in there to get rid of that radical. So I'll multiply the I'll multiply the denominator by the cube root of y. And since I do that to the denominator, I need to do the same thing to the numerator. I end up with x times the third root of y in the numerator. And in the denominator, I now have 2yz. All right, problem number 2. Square root of 5x squared over 2y squared. I think here I'm actually going to break this down into radical over radical first. So this is square root of 5x squared over the square root of 2y squared. And in the numerator, I can take an x out. And in the denominator, I can take a y out, since in both cases I have 2 factors and we're taking the second root. Now I still have that square root of 2 in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply the denominator by the square root of 2. And I also need to multiply the numerator by the square root of 2. And that gives me x times the square root of 10 over 2y. And the last one, I'll go ahead and do the same thing, split it into radical over radical. Now, if we think about what's going on here, we have a third root of x squared in the numerator, and in the denominator we have a third root of 5 times y times y. Now we need 3 of each of those factors in the denominator in order to eliminate the radical. So when I go to multiply by the denominator here, I need to multiply it by the third root of, and I need 2 5's and 1 y to complete my groups of 3. And that's 25y that I'm multiplying by. And so, to simplify, we'll multiply out the numerator. It becomes the third root of 25x squared y. And the denominator is going to be, well, I've got 3 5's and 3 y's, and I'm taking the third root. So in the denominator, I will just have 1 5 and 1 y. And I've gotten rid of my radical. And there's my final answer.